Today is September 10th, and these notes are on making and breaking molecules. I know today I'm not in school because I have to go to a training, but tomorrow we're going to be doing a lab on water. In order for you to do this lab on Friday, you need to show me two things. The first thing is that you have completed these notes for today. The second thing is that you have done the water pre-quiz that's in Schoology. The water pre-quiz will count as participation grade because I just want to see what you remember about water before we do it. If you can't show me both things, then you're going to have to sit on the sidelines and finish that before you can join in the lab, and I know you don't want to do that. So make sure you are on task today and get everything done you're supposed to get done. Remember in your notebooks to keep up with your page numbers and to keep up with your table of contents. That is also something that might prevent you from doing the lab tomorrow if your notebook is not kept up to speed so far. Before we talk about how to make and break molecules, we've got to look at some vocab words about molecules. A monomer is a word for a small building block or a small piece. A polymer is many monomers put together into a bigger molecule. Make sure you are keeping up with highlighting anything that is important in your notes. One way to remember monomers and polymers is like Lego blocks. A monomer is like an individual Lego piece, and if you put all the Lego pieces together, you can make a larger structure. A monomer is like the Lego block, and a polymer is like a bunch of Legos put together. On the bottom pictures there on the left side, you can see an individual sugar molecule. If you put a bunch of those together, you get a larger sugar molecule, a larger polymer. When we talk about making monomers and polymers and putting monomers together to make polymers or breaking polymers apart to make monomers, we're talking about chemical reactions. So it's worth stopping here for a second and reminding ourselves of what a chemical reaction is. A chemical reaction happens when you have two or more substances coming together and changing into something new. These substances, and it's kind of a vague word, but it can be atoms, it could be molecules, it could be pretty much anything, as long as they come together and make something completely different. So like for photosynthesis, in our example, carbon dioxide, water, and light go into it. What comes out of the reaction is sugar and oxygen. So these three things came together to make two completely different things. That's a chemical reaction. Let's change that. Let's gather everything. So when we're going to talk in a second about making and breaking molecules, making and breaking monomers and polymers, we're talking about a chemical reaction. If you have a bunch of monomers, a bunch of the little Lego blocks, and you want to put them together to make a bigger polymer, you would do something called a dehydration reaction. Look at the word dehydration. You know what dehydration means in a human. It means the same thing for these molecules. You've got one piece and a second piece, and you want to put them together. So what you do is take out a water molecule. You dehydrate it, take out the water, and then you can have a larger molecule put together. I'm going to leave a little bit of space under dehydration because we're going to talk about it and compare it to the next one in a second. So leave a couple lines for yourself. Now, if you have a big polymer and you want to break it apart, you've got to do the opposite. You do a hydrolysis reaction. So in this case, you've got this big molecule. You want to break it apart into smaller pieces, you would add water. That cuts it into two different pieces. So for dehydration, we took out water and put the molecule together. For hydrolysis, we added water and broke it apart. I know you're looking at those two words and you're thinking, holy crap, there's no way I'm going to be able to remember what they mean. Just like with every other biology word, if you can break it down, it makes it a lot easier to remember. So remember this, dehydration. What happens in your body if you are dehydrated? You are missing water. So in a dehydration, you are removing water. You are dehydrating, removing water. Spelled that really wrong. There we go. Now for hydrolysis. Lysis is a word we're going to see again later. Lysis means cutting. Well, hydro is water. Lysis is cutting. And in hydrolysis, that's kind of what is happening. You've got a big molecule. You want to cut it into smaller pieces. So you use water to cut it into two different pieces. Now in biology, we have some specific molecules or polymers that are really important to know. We're going to keep coming back to them as we talk about cells in biology A and in biology B. They're not going to go away anytime soon. Because remember, chemistry is important in biology. You can't talk about living things if you don't talk about chemistry. I'm going to scroll down on my paper here. There are 5 very important molecules. For today, we're just going to list them. I gave you some examples in case you're not sure what they are. I know there are a few in italics. I'm going to talk about that in a second. The first one is the easiest one, water. Obviously, water is important. We're doing a whole lab tomorrow just about water and all the cool things that water can do. Number 2 is carbohydrates. Those are your sugars and your fibers. Carbohydrates are used for energy. And actually, while we're here, I'm just going to go ahead and write that in. So that way we remember it for later. Lipids, that's your fats, oils, and waxes. They have lots of different jobs depending on which lipid you're talking about. Fourth are your nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. The job of DNA and RNA is genetics, and they help to make proteins. A good way to remember nucleic acids is you find DNA in a nucleus. So nucleic acids are found in a nucleus. There's a reason why they sound the same. The 5th one is proteins. And proteins are like the workers of the cell. They do everything for the cell. When you get to Bio B, you're going to have half of a month devoted just to proteins. How does this all tie together? Because we talked about the polymers and the monomers and the reactions and now the molecules. For 3 of those biological molecules, they are created by dehydration or hydrolysis. So for example, here's 2 small carbohydrates. If we wanted to put them together to make a bigger carbohydrate, you would use dehydration. If we wanted to break them apart, you would use hydrolysis. This right here, sucrose, that's actually the sugar that's in table sugar. So this is how sugar is made. This is how sugar is made, and then when you digest it, it's broken apart. Let's list them here. That is the end of our notes for today. These molecules are not going away, so if you have questions, you have no idea what I'm talking about, remember to write something down so you remember to ask me about it. Since I'm not at school today, if you want to message me on Schoology, I will get to you as soon as I can.